Good afternoon, or at least it's good afternoon to me, because you are listening to a podcast, and podcasts get listened to wherever you are. It is currently Monday afternoon, and I am in my regular podcasting hub, just brought down the microphone. Don't know if this makes a weird noise. And I just love that I have this space to create things on a random Monday afternoon, because my Mondays used to look a lot different and a lot more stressed. And now I get to batch 2 to 3 episodes every couple of weeks. And it makes me so happy that I designed a week that actually gives me energy, which is, by the way, the topic of this episode, because so often I see entrepreneurs struggle with what I used to struggle with: weeks that fall way beyond your control. You aren't doing what you love doing anymore. You started your business because you wanted to be a coach or because you wanted to create things. And now all of a sudden, every day you're caught up in the day to day. So in this week's episode, I'm going to dive into how you get to design your ideal week. And spoiler alert, this is an exercise I do regularly for myself. At least every quarter I repeat this, and I teach my clients to repeat this as well, because it makes all the difference that you keep, I don't know, what are the words? You keep realigning your compass or something, so that your business can fit you instead of the other way around. Okay, let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to Fail to Win, the show where we love to make mistakes and learn from them so you can turn your passion into profits and live life on your own terms. I'm Amy van der Putten from FastForwardAmy, your host and coach, and I'll bring you a new episode with simple strategies every Tuesday. So I've shared this before in previous episodes. By the way, I just sat back a little bit because I was almost eating the microphone. I've shared this before, but when I started growing my business in the beginning, I was by myself, and then you're by yourself. You're working with clients a lot, but then, you become the CEO. You start hiring, you become someone's boss. And before you know it, you're in meetings. I shared more about how to run meetings last week, by the way, which is definitely a very good complementary episode to this one. So definitely go and check out the previous 2 episodes about communication and meetings and stuff. And the episode before that was also about how to structure your organization. So what I wanted to say is, all of a sudden you're growing and you're not just spending time on systems anymore, because we all want to outsource our systems. All of a sudden you're teaching other people to use your systems to send out emails or to write copy or whatever, but you are constantly leading your team, being in meetings. And for me, at a certain point, I was just fed up. I am a fairly introverted extrovert, so I extrovert a lot for my work and have a really big social life, but I really recharge by being by myself. And I started feeling really, really worn out. Now, I've learned that the way you recharge is a very good way to look at, are you extroverted or introverted? This is probably different for everyone, but for me, being introverted is something that, for me, it means that I recharge by being alone. Although I love people, I love my family, my friends, my clients, my team, I often just need to recharge by being alone. At the same time, I'm extremely highly sensitive. Like if I take a "Are you highly sensitive?" test, I score so many points. Very, 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 very highly sensitive. So I get overstimulated easily. So you can imagine that having a very social job with lots of people isn't always easy for me, although I do love what I do. So introverted, highly sensitive, and then I had a look at my DISC profile or insights profile or whatever. I have a mostly yellow-red profile, which means there's a lot of influence in me, which means people. I want to get all of the people on the train. I want to do lots of things together, but I also love being creative. And I have a lot of the dominance or the driver color in me as well. But that also means it's actually, this is actually surprising to many people, but it's not my most dominant color. So for me, being able to be creative is really important. And I don't necessarily enjoy being around other people all of the time. So I mashed up my entire personality. I was like, oh, introverted, ooh, highly sensitive, oh, lots of creativity, oh, but I also do like being in charge, but just not all the time. So you can imagine that figuring out a weekly structure that worked well for me has been quite the hassle. It started when I was a fitness coach and I was actually still in school, and I had clients 6 days a week. And I figured out that on Saturdays, I got a lot of cancellations. At a certain point, I figured, you know what? I'm seeing people way too much. This is not efficient. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to design my ideal week. I didn't know how I was going to make it happen. I just knew I needed to design it to look differently. So I sat down, and this is almost 10 years ago, probably 2016, something like that. I sat down and I designed my ideal week for the first time. I allowed myself to think about what do I want it to look like instead of how am I going to do it, because I was in school full-time, working full-time. So obviously I didn't know how I was going to cut down on clients and stuff like that. I just knew what would really excite me is to see people 3 days a week, not 6 days a week, to have my Saturdays off and to have some time to work on my online business, because it was getting really hard to prioritize that because I was always studying or being with clients. My studying was always happening late at night and stuff. And I just felt like, okay, Amy, you really need to time block. You need to batch. And it wasn't happening. So I created that new schedule and I started looking at, okay, now I know very clearly what I want my ideal week to look like. How am I going to make it happen? But I only started thinking about the how once I'd put it in place. So I figured out, okay, so Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays are good days to work with clients. On Mondays and Wednesdays, I'm going to work on my business or work for school. So I decided, okay, I need to have some chats with my clients. Some clients, I saw them 4 days a week. That was scaled back to 3 days a week. Some were on 3 days a week. That scaled back to twice a week. I got them equipment to work out at home, stuff like that. But as my business grew and I went from being a fitness coach to a business coach, I already mentioned it at the beginning of this episode, but all of a sudden I spent Wednesdays, correcting my clients' assignments and Thursdays in coaching calls. And then the assignments and the systems started taking over. So again, I was in a situation where like, wow, I'm doing so much, but I also want to spend some more time on growth. And at a certain point, my dad told me, when you're building a business, you need at least 1 day a week that's CEO time. And at the time I was like, but there's only 7 days in a week. How am I going to do this? But again, I sat down, did my ideal week exercise, and on it went. Every 3 months or so, I've redone this. And a month ago, I was on the plane. After Christmas, we flew to Dubai for a month to work from there. I sat down, got my Excel open while the rest of the people on the plane were sleeping or drinking or eating or watching movies. And I was like, okay, new year. Perfect time for me to recreate my ideal week with the changes my business has gone through again. So what made a major shift 2 years ago was that I used to do meetings all the time. On Mondays, we had sales meeting or marketing meeting. Tuesdays was sales meeting or marketing meeting. Thursdays was coaching meeting. Fridays was something else. It was always something. Meetings, which are, always interrupting your creative flow and your days. So back then, my big shift was to bring all of my meetings back to Tuesdays. But then I was in meetings all day long on Tuesday, as well as my team members, which was actually not amazing for productivity. And every meeting took an hour. And often we were just in meetings all day long. And I had to come home after a long Tuesday and be like, wow, I am so exhausted. But I noticed that when I was by myself and I could podcast for half a day and then work on strategy for half a day and my numbers and content and launch plans and stuff, I would be really energized. So I had a good look at just like my calendar. I was like, well, this is interesting. When I can spend all day in either, strategy or creative time, I feel recharged after a long day. But when I have to spend it all day long in meetings, I feel really drained. So I started playing around with my ideal week and I started designing it in a little bit of a split. And that's what I want to teach you in this episode. I'm also going to give you a file that you can use to design your own ideal week. Because what I tweaked is that my Mondays became full-blown yellow-red meetings days. So I mean, when I say yellow-red, it's basically orange, which is a mix of strategy and creativity. My Wednesdays are yellow days, which is all creativity for me. My Thursdays are more green days where I'm coaching, where I'm with people. And my Tuesdays are a mix of being with my team, but also coaching them, guiding them, and some deep work in the mornings. I'll give you an example of exactly what my week looks like at the time of this recording because I mapped it out and I created a little template for you. So you can go and check it out. But so what happened is I now only have meetings a maximum of 2 days a week. If we have more meetings, it's really, really an exception to the rule because we have meeting-free days. Again, I talked about that in last week's episode as well. But I think my challenge for you would be to really sit down, grab my template to go and do that. By the way, if you want to grab it, it's you can see the example of my ideal week, and you can print out an empty page where you can fill out your ideal week, and you can even do it in colors if you want. And maybe I can see if I can link my digital file as well. I'll do that, and then you have examples. You can fill it out, digitize, print out, whatever you want. So in my example, you'll see that, for example, I do deep work in the mornings. For me, I try to avoid meetings in the mornings because once I am in meetings, once I am reactive with other people, it's really hard for me to tap back into my creativity or like my deeper brain. So if I'm writing, strategizing, podcasting, I prefer to do it Monday morning, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, Friday morning. Thursdays are my day of exception. That's where I'll have coaching calls all day long, either one-on-one calls with high-level clients or group coaching calls for my business club and other programs. So, but I do batch that because it allows me to work on my coaching. For example, what could be deep work for me could be that Monday morning I deep dive into my sessions and I create new resources for my clients or new videos or tutorials or documents or guides that will help them. If I am just coaching all week long, that leaves me no room to work on my business, on my coaching calls, on my customer satisfaction and all of that. So that's why I really divide my week into blocks of deep work, blocks of meetings, blocks of calls, blocks of marketing, so that every week I can repeat this. And so a lot of people always come back to me and they say, "Oh, Amy, I'm not like you. I'm not as like rigid as you. I don't like these fixed blocks." But then they also tell me that they're so busy and so swamped. And then I tell them, it's kind of like when people say they don't want to eat the same meals every day and they don't want to meal prep. And I'll ask them, "So what do you usually eat for lunch?" And it's almost always the same thing. The thing is, everything I do, you need to do. You need to prep your coaching calls. You need to have your coaching calls. For me, I just make the decision-making process easier of when am I having the coaching calls? When am I going live on Instagram? When am I recording new ads? When am I developing new products and new course content? Because I've outlined it all in my normal ideal week. Oh, what I was going to say earlier is if you want my template, I'll link it in the description. I linked a little bit of an explanation as well as to how you can use it. And if you want, you can also just DM me the word ideal week, all one word on Instagram, and I'll send you my template as well. You can either print it out or fill it out digitally. So the thing is, you're busy regardless, but when you learn how to time block and batch and repeat the same stuff every week, it's going to be much easier to stick to things. So for example, for me, I had a webinar this morning and some other stuff, so I knew I was going to record podcasts this afternoon, but I've been doing this for a while now on Mondays, so I've gotten used to getting in the habit of just recording the podcast, where it would have been much more difficult in the past to get myself to create on a Monday, for example, because I would be swamped with just like busy tasks. And now I know on a Monday, it's really important for you that you create your podcast episodes. It's like when I used to work out, I would always deadlift on a Monday. Even when I was tired or I didn't have enough time for a full workout, I knew, okay, worst case, I'll go into the gym and I'll just deadlift and not do anything else. When your brain just simply knows, oh, this is what we do then, it becomes a lot easier to just always do it. Just like for me on Thursdays, that's been my coaching day for 6 years now. So on Thursday, like my family even knows I'm offline. They can't reach me. I'm in calls all day long. I know to process those calls by the end of the day. I know I'll have a date night at the end of the night with my boyfriend who hates repetition, by the way. Took me a while to convince him of the date nights. And he was like, "I don't want a fixed date night. I want it to be spontaneous and always the same day. Isn't that boring?" But then I told him, what's the alternative? That we don't do a date night? I'd rather have a date night every Thursday than not have a date night, because then we're also doing the same thing, namely lying on the couch. So often we tell ourselves we don't want to eat the same meals. We don't want a fixed structure. Ooh, we want freedom as an entrepreneur. And I get to choose when I create my podcast episodes. Obviously, if I want to record them tomorrow or the day after, that's fine. But I like knowing that I get it done on time and that I'm not doing every single little thing in my business last minute. So yeah, I guess this is my request for you to create an ideal week and to not be bothered by, is this going to work? How is it going to work? How will people feel if I tell them I'm not doing meetings on Mondays anymore, or if I'm online for a few hours, or what if someone needs to reach me? Don't obsess about those things yet. Just simply sit down and create your ideal daily and weekly rhythm. So for me, for example, each day I have a 2-hour lunch break. The first hour goes to my workout. The second hour goes to lunch and a walk. I also take half an hour to check some messages before my lunch break. Why did I insert that into my calendar? In all fairness, I'll probably check messages a bit more. I'll check them throughout the day. But when I do that, I'm always distracted from the deeper work I was doing. So I'm really trying to train myself right now to include these busy buffers into my days and to also include more deep work sessions, because I just get a lot more done when I am batching like this. So for example, right now I can record a second podcast episode, and in half an hour, I'll be done podcasting. But if right now, after this episode, I'll go and check my messages and get distracted again, then in half an hour, I have to leave because I have a movie premiere I'm going to tonight, and I won't have my second podcast. But I know in my structure, every month before the end of the month, my podcasts are all done for the next month. So I just have all of these repetitive structures in my business. I know when I need to do what. And that reduces a lot of the thinking, basically. I don't need to think about, am I working out? No, the workout is scheduled. Am I recording podcasts? No, the podcasts are scheduled. And it just really helps to create that rhythm in your business. And again, if you want to move around the blocks, that's fine, but you're going to have to do the work anyways. So for me, it really helps that it has a spot and I can finish work on time at the end of the day. So what I also included in my ideal week is my monthly, my morning routine. Like, when do I wake up? What do I do in the morning, movement-wise? When do I meditate and do all of that? When do I get ready for work? What I do first thing in the day. Sometimes that's reviewing my stats. Sometimes that's going live on Instagram. When I have deep work blocks, what my work hours are, when I cook, eat, all of that. Obviously, it's not actually like this every day, but this is more or less the rhythm I try to aim for. Lately, I've been pretty tired because I went over this rhythm a lot. For example, normally I'll do a wrap up and check in on stuff between 5 and 6. Lately, I've been having dinner appointments and things to go to really early in the day. So I skip those messages. So then you're later on, you're thinking, oh shit, I still need to reply to that. So what I've learned from that is that when I have to leave my house earlier, and if you're a mom, you know this because your days end a lot earlier, then I have to plan in time for that stuff as well. So it's just really taught me to look at, okay, what does it look like in my ideal world? And then how can I adjust my days or be more realistic about my workday planning if things change? So definitely go and grab my ideal weekly planner so that you can create your own ideal week. Use some colors to make it very visually appealing what you are doing when, and so you can plan in your work easily. It's going to help you plan way more realistically, hence you're going to be less stressed. And let me know, send me a pic or something if you've done it. Let me know if you like this episode. And I would say good luck. Don't forget to take into account that if you're introverted or highly sensitive or whatever, and you feel like you need some more time alone, that you might just need some more offline time, reduce meetings or calls, stuff like that, and basically build in a repetitive rhythm in your business. It's really going to help you. By the way, next month actually, I'm headed out to our next Self-Made Millionaire retreat. And I know there's a lot of people who are interested in the Millionaire Retreat and the Millionaire Mastermind. They might want me as a coach, but they're still kind of like in doubt. Like, is it right for me? Am I at the right level? What do I get? If you are interested in the Millionaire Mastermind, where I help you become a $1 million plus business owner, mainly focused on online businesses. If you're interested in that and you want to talk about it, I don't bite. I know I can come off across a little bit, I don't know, direct or something, but I really don't bite. So if you want to ask me questions about it and just chat, no expectations, just DM me the word mastermind on Instagram and let's talk. And in the meantime, my house renovations are still going strong. And in the hallway, they are vacuuming. And I really hope you can't hear it in this episode, but let's see. Bye. Talk to you next week. DM me Mastermind if you want to chat because the retreat is next month. Bye-bye.